Welcome to today's Explainer. I am absolutely thrilled you're tuning in. Today, we are taking a deep dive into the invisible architecture of your favorite films. We're going to uncover exactly how professional filmmakers craft dialogue that brings characters and stories to life, making them sound completely authentically real. So let's start with a feeling I know we have all experienced. You're watching a movie, you're deeply invested in the story, and suddenly a character opens their mouth and the entire illusion just shatters. The dialogue feels completely fake, you literally cringe because the character starts over-explaining everything they're thinking, spoon-feeding the plot in a way no human being would ever actually speak. It is a universally frustrating problem, right? It just completely ruins the magic of the story.
Well, to fix that fake feeling, we have to understand a really fundamental truth about screenwriting. Great film dialogue is not just random, realistic conversation. Think about it. If we wrote dialogue exactly how people talk in the real world, it would be full of rambling, endless repetition, and totally unorganized thoughts. Honestly, it would be incredibly boring to watch. Instead, cinematic dialogue is a highly crafted tool. It's carefully designed to feel natural while constantly working overtime to reveal a character's personality, build their relationships, and propel the story forward. Every single word has to earn its place.
Which brings us to our first major tool. Principle 1. Crafting unique character voices.
Unique voices are the absolute foundation of believable interactions. I mean, a child doesn't use the same vocabulary as a tenured professor. A mountain shepherd whose whole life is defined by isolation and nature is going to string sentences together completely differently than a fast-talking city lawyer who argues for a living. Even a naturally quiet person will choose different words than someone who just radiates confidence. The ultimate test of a script is this. If you stripped the character names right off the page, you should still be able to tell exactly who is speaking. Their word choice should perfectly reflect their unique personality, their education, their culture, and their distinct life experience.
All right, let's move on to our second principle, which tackles a really common beginner mistake. Principle 2, show, don't explain.
We really need to break the habit of using dialogue to artificially spoon-feed emotions directly into the audience's brains. For example, weak explanatory dialogue like, "I'm nervous because this interview is important," is just incredibly boring. It leaves zero room for imagination. But instead, what if that same character asks, "Do I look okay? Maybe we should check everything one more time." Notice how we don't even need the word nervous there? We actually hear the anxiety and the rapid questions and that desperate need for reassurance. Implying an emotion through a character's natural speech patterns is just so much more effective and engaging than flatly stating it.
And that leads us beautifully right into Principle 3, mastering subtext.
Listen, if you take away just one thing from this entire explainer, let it be this crucial tool. Subtext is simply what characters mean without saying it directly. Think about your own life for a second. When you're furious or heartbroken or deeply in love, do you always explicitly state your feelings in clear, factual sentences? Rarely, because in real life and in great movies, people have filters, they have pride, they have fear. They almost never say exactly what they are actually feeling in their core.
So the absolutely crucial point here is that words do not equal meaning. To anchor this concept, consider this classic scenario. Imagine a teenager comes home hours past their curfew. A worried parent meets them at the door. That parent doesn't look at them and explicitly say, "I am incredibly angry and relieved you are alive." No way. Instead, the parent might just look down and quietly ask, "Have you eaten?" The literal words are about food, but the subtext, the true meaning vibrating underneath those words, is communicating deep concern, intense disappointment, and undeniable love. It is this hidden meaning that makes dialogue feel profoundly human. Let's introduce our fourth principle now. Let conflict shape conversations. If you want dialogue that absolutely crackles with energy, you need characters who want fundamentally different things at the exact same moment. Just imagine one character desperately wanting to leave a room while the other wants them to stay. Or one is digging for the truth while the other is doing everything in their power to hide it. And hey, conflict doesn't always mean people are screaming at each other. Sometimes the most intense conflict happens in mere whispers. It's these opposing desires, these two forces pulling in completely opposite directions, that create a natural, driving tension in the conversation, making it literally impossible for the viewer to look away. We've arrived at the final tool in our core kit. Principle 5, the power of silence.
You know, it is so easy to forget when writing dialogue that cinema is inherently a visual medium where honestly, words sometimes just get in the way. A subtle glance, a trembling hand, a knowing smile, or just a pause. Did you feel that? That deliberate, heavy pause often communicates so much more powerfully than a spoken line ever could. It allows the audience to lean in and actually interpret the unspoken emotion for themselves. Okay, let's see how this all builds into something practical. It's time for a dialogue makeover. Let's take the tools we just learned and fix a notoriously clunky piece of dialogue. In a weak, beginner version of a scene, Allie might say, "I'm sad because grandfather doesn't trust me." And grandfather replies, "I don't trust you because you're too young." Yikes. It's terrible and completely on the nose. But let's apply our principles. In the better version, Allie says, "I brought the camera, just one photograph." Grandfather replies, "Put it away. Some memories aren't meant for strangers." And then, in total silence, Allie lowers the camera. Do you see that transformation? The second version never uses the word trust or sad. Instead, it uses a conflict over an object, the camera, to weave deep subtext. It uses silent action at the end to land the emotional punch. It conveys the exact same lack of trust, but it does it beautifully, without a single drop of clunky exposition. Now let's talk about avoiding common mistakes. Let's quickly summarize the pitfalls that lead right back to that cringeworthy dialogue we discussed at the very beginning. Weak dialogue is plagued by characters giving unnatural long speeches, repeating info the audience already knows, and everyone sounding like the exact same person. Professional dialogue, on the other hand, is crisp. It relies on distinct voices, layers of subtext, underlying conflict, and a relentless sense of purpose. Above all, you absolutely must avoid scenes where characters are simply exchanging facts just for the benefit of the audience. So, to ensure you never fall into those traps, here's a practical checklist. I highly recommend running every single line of dialogue you write through these 4 questions before you decide to keep it. Step 1, does it reveal character? Step 2, does it move the story forward? Step 3, does it create emotion or conflict? And step 4, which is perhaps the most ruthless question, could the audience understand this exact same point without the line at all, just through visual action? If the answer is no to the first 3 or yes to the 4th, cut the line. I want to conclude this explainer with a counterintuitive yet incredibly powerful rule from professional screenwriting. Dialogue should be the last tool you use, not the first. I know, it sounds a bit strange for a lesson entirely about dialogue, doesn't it? But the true secret to natural, authentic conversation on screen is trusting your audience. Let them discover emotions through behavior, expressions, and the space between the words. When you force your viewers to read between the lines, they become active participants in your story. So as you analyze your favorite films or work on your own stories, ask yourself, what is the character really saying when they aren't saying anything at all? Thank you so much for joining me today, and keep learning.